I open my mind, I open my heart, I open my whole being to spirit. I open my whole being to love. It's not out there somewhere. It's in, here, everywhere. There is only one source of all there is. One source of love, one source of joy, one source of all. Because there's only one source, each of us are of that. Individualized expressions of the one, which kind of means unique but not separate. I am spirit wearing a Buffy suit. Each of you is spirit with all the possibilities and power, wearing the unique suit that is yours. Living as love in a world of love is our vision as a community. And it is my mission as an individual. So I know that when I choose to put that love lens in front of my eyes, that's all I see. I see choices being made. I see growth happening. I see life evolving. And that love allows me to say thank you all the time. Because I recognize there's no end point. It's just greater and greater good, greater and greater love, greater and greater joy. Today we meet through the lens of love joyously, celebrating our unity as love in skin, in this room, psychically, metaphorically, whatever the word is, connected to each of those through the magic of the internet, not separate, not apart from each other, and not apart from spirit. I am so grateful for this awareness that we are never separate from that which we come from. Never separate, never alone in my efforts to learn and grow and thrive. And that magnetic pull of good is never far from me. I am so grateful for our teacher, Reverend David. I am so grateful for each of us as teachers to each other. So grateful that we are each willing to learn, willing to lend a hand, to lend a hug, to receive a hug. So I open to this today. I open to the newness that will come this afternoon as we vision together. Where are we going? What does love want from us as a community? I open and welcome each of these understandings, knowing good calls me forth, calls us forth. So Now I release my words into that law that knows exactly what to do with it. I don't have to do anything. I have set my intention, and I release it, and I let it go. So please join me in knowing that this is the good that is coming by saying, and so it is.
So our talk today is love. It's called Love Wins. And I'm reminded of, there's a Daniel Ladinsky poem that he wrote in the spirit of Hafiz that says, the subject tonight is love. And for tomorrow night as well. In fact, it is the only subject that I can think of to talk about for all eternity. Because we are love in form. We are love. So this is our final week in the month-long look at a series of living out loud and love out loud. I'm reminded of that old song that Jackie DeShannon made famous for some of us who are of a certain age. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Yes. In truth, love is infinite and fully present. And it's a love that, as Ella Wheeler Wilcox wrote, a love so limitless, deep, and broad that men have renamed it and called it God. Isn't that sweet? So we are love. You know, we engage in spiritual practices to remember this truth. We are love. To remember the truth of who we are. You know, the purpose of medication, the purpose of meditation, and medication too, for that example, because it's the purpose of everything, is to return us to that remembrance of who we are. Because we get so turned around in human existence that we forget that we are love. And so we go looking for love in all the wrong places. And we go looking for love. We go looking for our good instead of looking and living from love and from our good. Even our spiritual practices can get turned around so that instead of praying from who we are, and instead of praying from what we are, we start praying for it, which pushes it away because we are inherently affirming lack of whatever that is, that we aren't that. And since we become, what manifests in our lives is what we are, not what we wish to be. Okay? If I'm praying for something and I don't recognize that it already lives and exists within and as me, that's what shows up, is the lack. Most of us were taught to pray to an external God, up there in the sky, right? To give us things or fix situations. Anybody besides me kind of grew up with that as a, yeah. But there is no God external to us. I know Buffy and I have a favorite line from Jim Morrison of The Doors, who said, "You cannot petition the Lord with prayer." It's in a song called The Soft Parade. He says it rather with a little more energy than that. We can't petition the Lord with prayer because there is no Lord out there that needs petitioning. Would you want a God who, if I pray hard enough, my football team wins and yours loses? Would But would you really? No. Which is why I love our method of prayer, which begins by remembering the nature of this divine essence, first and foremost. And then it remembers that we are that essence in form. We are, as Buffy said, wearing a Buffy suit, or a Laura suit, or a Susan suit, or whatever, our suit is, but we are still that infinite presence in form. We are this same essence individualized, and our task is to remember and then externalize, to love out loud, this nature of who we are, who we already are. But in case you haven't noticed, we get stuck. And we withhold our essence of who we are, in this case, our love. We withhold expressing it. We hold back from loving out loud. And we do this, of course, out of fear. Yes. See, love seems weak in the face of all the stuff happening in the external, yes? All the tumult of the world. But love is like water. It seems to be weak. It seems like you can push it around. But water can erode earth and cut through rock given enough time. It can squelch fire, and while wind can stir up the surface of a water, the essence underneath stays the same, stays in that place of deep peace. Richard Rohr says that compassion and patience are the unique characteristics of spiritual authority. Compassion and patience are the unique characteristics of spiritual authority. And spiritual authority is not a power over, it's not forcing or willing, but it's from love and allowing. It's not a, I'm going to make it happen. It's, I'm going to make it welcome. How many of us have tried to beat our heads against certain walls trying to make it happen? Yeah, my hand's up too. Both hands. A couple feet too. And it doesn't work in the long run. To those without a spiritual understanding, this process will appear weak and perhaps even spineless, but one working from and as love is connected to the most powerful force in the universe. Because we are God in form, we are love in form, because God is love. The infinite presence, by whatever name we want to give it, is love. And so our only task is to allow that love to flow more freely. The main impediment to the flow of love is what we might call lack of trust and the ensuing fear that arises from that. Now, in truth, there is no lack of trust. Okay? There's only trust in something other than what we want. There's only trust in lack. There's only trust in what's in our way. There is only trust in what we don't want. So, for instance, in my life, this is not a surprise to those of you who know me, I have trusted that relationships don't work out. Based on experiences from my childhood forward, I got lots of evidence. So, of course, that's my ongoing experience until I change that belief. The good news, by the way, is we can change our beliefs. And then when we have those things going on, we use substitutes, food, alcohol, work, exercise, games, TV, all sorts of other stuff to cover over the real feeling. And the real feeling at the bottom of it is the real trust in isolation or separation from love. That I am isolated from love, that I am isolated from God, this infinite presence, whatever you want to call it, and that I am isolated from another person. That is our underlying fear. That is our underlying perception and belief based on that perception. The other place where we can misplace our trust is in rules. Only if we do certain things in a certain way will our version of God be pleased, and we will be included in its love. I know none of you have ever done that, but you might have watched other people do that, yes? And then we attempt to withhold love from others, shaming them into following our rules, not realizing that love, like water, literally cannot be withheld. And it is only we who hold ourselves outside of infinite love. You know, Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." I use the metaphor sometimes, and it's used often, that when you turn on a light in a dark room, there's no battle that happens between light and dark, right? You don't see bloody little pieces of darkness laying around here from when we turned the lights on this morning, okay? Because dark is simply the absence of light. Hate or apathy is simply the absence of love. And so when we open up and allow ourselves to flow as love, and the love that is within us to be expressed out loud, hate just dissolves because it's simply the absence of love. But instead we think, I'll say we, but we, a larger collective we, think and are conditioned that if we just hate evildoers enough, excuse me, evildoers, in quotes, enough, if we just apply enough anger, fear, shaming, resistance, isolation, that we will force them into compliance with our way. Our way of how to behave to be worthy of love. But real love doesn't demand rules or worthiness. I used a quote a couple weeks ago that love moves past all barriers, jumps all fences. You can't isolate it. You can't hold it back. We have a huge human history of trying to do that. You can't love this person because they are different than you, different social status, different country, different race, different gender, same gender, etc., etc., etc. Love can't be fenced in, boxed in, held back. That's not its nature. And love doesn't see people as evildoers because they don't comply with our way. Love is just love. It's beyond all the barriers and fences we create. That's what we're working with. And we create barriers and fences about others, and then we create barriers and fences within ourselves. And so when we encounter our barriers, whether it's about another person or ourselves, when we encounter our places of trusting something unlike love, we have opportunities to apply compassionate curiosity to learn about our own rules and beliefs. Roger Teal, who has retired but used to be the minister at Mile High Church in Denver, said all conflicts are forgiveness opportunities in disguise. I'll say that again, and you might want to breathe. All conflicts are forgiveness opportunities in disguise. Though difficult, every conflict is a mighty and wondrous opportunity to bring forth the very best in you. It is a sacred opportunity to let contention lead to invention, to the breakthroughs that open hearts. Rather than applying shaming to ourselves or angry self-righteousness to others, we have the opportunity to deepen our experience of the field of infinite love. Yesterday in our grief circle, we talked about how the emotions of grief can feel like a bottomless pit from which we'll never emerge. But in truth, below that bottomless pit, underneath that bottomless pit, is infinite love, because underneath everything is infinite love. It's who we are, it's what the universe, the infinite, is. We just need to allow ourselves enough emotional space to get to that field of infinite love. We need to open ourselves up a little bit to not cling to my way, to get to that field of infinite love, which Rumi reminds us of in his famous poem of out beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there's a field. And that field is the field of infinite love beyond our rules. Ernest Holmes says, there is no person we could hate if we loved them. Take that in for a moment. It seems very obvious on the surface, or very kind of, well, yeah. There is no person we could hate if we loved them. It is a terrible thing to feel disunited with life and the world and each other, because this is to us a reflection of our own soul. This is to us this vast panoramic picture mirror. Whatever we hate in another, we hate within ourselves, because there's only one of us. Breathe. When we use what we hate or dislike in another, not as a judgment point for another, nor a point of shame about ourselves, but as an entry point, an insight, a portal into our own rules and our own places where we restrict the flow of love. We begin to free ourselves from fear. We begin to free ourselves from the belief in isolation. So when you notice that you're not applying love to somebody, instead of beating yourself up, or instead of saying, oh, they're really messed up, so I'm justified in not loving, it's looking within myself, where does that live? What must I believe that I can't hold that person love? By the way, that does not mean you have to like what they do. Yes? You don't have to agree with them. In psychology, it's more of a tendency to talk about the neurosis rather than the neurotic. We stop labeling people as such. But they have behaviors that may not work. I know none of us have those behaviors, but we've seen other people, yes? Okay? We were born with and as love. We learned fear. We learned racism. We learned what's the right religion. We learned what's the right country, what's the right gender, what's the right way of everything. Our work, by the way, I love Don Miguel Ruiz calls that domestication. We have been domesticated into believing the world is a certain way, and it's not. So our work is releasing the fears, releasing the beliefs, releasing all these rules that separate us from each other and from ourselves, and finding the love that is always living within us. And as we do that, love wins. This is a love that is not a spiritual bypass. It's not saying, oh, la, 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 everything is fine, when it's not. But we can truly bring a greater experience of good, of love, of joy, of wholeness, when we ourselves function from the truth of love. See, if I'm trying to go out and change the world, but I'm trying to do it from a place of anger and fear and judgment, all I'm going to create is more anger, fear, and judgment. I had the experience many years ago. I was in a personal growth seminar, and the gentleman who was running the office of that particular group and I were born on exactly the same day, March 13th, 1951. And on his wall, he had a picture. He was a Vietnam War veteran, and he had a picture of the paratroop unit that he was the captain of. And they were all on this wall that had all these pegs in it, and they were all positioned on this wall, up this wall, with all looking tough and angry and all that stuff, And I remember looking at that, and I was thinking, and I was a Vietnam War protester. I know. True confession. I would have burned my draft card if I had had one. And so I was opposed to that Vietnam War. Don't beat yourself up. I was opposed to that Vietnam War, and I realized as I looked at that picture, if you took a picture of me and my friends at exactly that same time, we would have all been with our long hair and like that, in our angry postures, opposing the Vietnam War with anger and fighting also. Yes?
Yeah.
It's not love. So unless we can function unless we first heal ourselves, unless we first get to, the first talk in our series this whole month was self-love. I love myself so much. Brent and Amy are going to sing about that in a few minutes. Unless we love ourselves and unless we identify and recognize that we are love in form, we cannot go out into the world and heal, because we'll just take our own woundedness and reform it in a new way. We'll just recreate our conditioning of fear, of hurt, of rules, of self-righteousness, and just replicate that. Ernest Holmes recommends this. He says, if we look at love long enough, we shall become lovely. For this is the way of love. God is love. If we gaze longingly at joy, it will make its home with us. If we seek the divine in people, we shall find it and be entertaining angels unawares. I'm not stupid. There are people who it's really tough to see the divine in them. They've got really thick masks, yes? You know, last week I came up here and I asked you, will you love me? And then I said, well, if I had a different face, a face of, you know, somebody that maybe some people don't like, would you still love me? And it was like kind of, you know, let me think about that. Some people have really thick masks. Sometimes each of us have really thick masks in certain situations. Can we see past the mask? Can we see the divine within each person? When we stop looking for love and look as love, we will see and then create a greater experience, a greater embodiment, and a greater expression of love within us and all around us. Love wins. Our spiritual practice this week is two-part. Number one, think of someone or something that irritates you. Someone or something that you have difficulty feeling love for. And recognizing them as a mirror, ask, where does that same quality live within me? I'm going to duck so you don't throw tomatoes at me here. Where does that same thing that I dislike about that other person live within me? What is my rule? What is my belief that is being challenged by this person? And then ask, can I love myself anyways with this rule? And can I love this person with this also with this rule? Can I love anyway? And again, you don't have to like or even agree with what they do. Okay, there are people who are doing stuff that really, really, really is inappropriate, yes? Okay. But can I love the person? Can I love the divine being who's doing their best but is, you know, maybe off on a way off tangent? Has anybody besides me ever been off on a way off tangent? No? Okay. Well, I can testify that I have. Can I love myself anyways? Can I love that person anyways? And frankly, when we love them back into remembering who they are. We have that possibility. So that's the first practice. Think of someone that irritates you, recognizing them as a mirror. Ask, where does that quality, where does that rule live within me, and can I love myself and them anyways? And then the second practice is look at love long enough to become it. In other words, sit and contemplate that divine love. Gaze at joy until it finds its home within you. Seek and find the divine in all people. Will you take on that practice this week? Yes. It can be challenging, but it also will create a breakthrough for you in your life. I have a quote from Marianne Williamson who says, "We're like the spokes on a wheel, all radiating out from the same center. If you define us according to our position on the rim, we seem separate and distinct from one another. But if you define us according to our starting point, our source, the center of the wheel, we're a shared identity. If you dig deep enough into your mind and deep enough into my mind, the picture is the same. At the bottom of it all, what we are is love." That was going to be my closing quote until I read today's spiritual reading out of my daily 365 days of ritual living. And I've decided I'm going to read it to you. What's that? And it's titled, "The Essence of Love Expresses Through Me as Harmony." And it says, "The law of the Lord is perfect, and the law of the Lord is love." When we talk about love in religious science, we're talking about the law of cause and effect, the law of what I put out comes back to me, what I express is reflected back. That's the law. Nothing more than that, nothing less than that. It isn't some big cop sitting up there in the sky somewhere going, "Are you doing it right?" No, it's just what we put out is what comes back to us. So the law of the Lord is perfect, and the law of the Lord is love. You are made perfect in the law when you enter into conscious communion with the love. It is only through love that the law can fulfill itself in your experience, because love harmonizes everything and unifies everything. You can never make the most perfect use of the law of your life unless that use is motivated by love. As the artist weds herself to beauty, imbibing the essence or spirit of beauty that it may be transmitted to the canvas or awakened in the cold marble into living form, so you must wed yourself to love. You must imbibe its spirit. This love is more than a sentiment. It is a deep sense of the underlying unity and beauty of all life, the goodness running through everything, the givingness of life to everything. And the prayer is, today I bestow the essence of love upon everything. Say that with me. Today I bestow the essence of love upon everything. And it goes on, everyone shall be lovely to me. My soul meets the soul of the universe in everyone. Everything is beautiful. Everything is meaningful. This love is a healing power, touching everything into wholeness, healing the wounds of experience with its divine balm. I know this love essence is the very substance of life, the creative principle back of everything, flowing through my whole being, spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical. It flows in transcendent loveliness into my world of thought and form, ever renewing, vitalizing, bringing joy, harmony, and blessing to everything and everyone it touches. Are you willing to let your love flow? We have an affirmation. Say this with me. I let love win in my heart. As love in form, I bring love into every situation. So I do, and so it is.
So it is.